Welcome to Second Look Education. I'm Amy.
And I'm Candace.
We're educators examining what's really happening in classrooms, policy, and teacher preparation. When joy is treated as optional, when professional judgment is replaced by scripts, and when compliance is mistaken for quality, both teachers and children pay the cost.
This podcast is our refusal to normalize that. Are we educating for compliance or for a future of educated critical thinkers?
That question drives everything we do. Each episode starts with a real moment from education, something observed, experienced, or encountered that made us pause and ask, what's actually going on here?
We dig into the complexity, we reject false binaries, and we refuse to pretend that what we're seeing is sustainable. This is Second Look Education.
Welcome back to Second Look Education. We are moving into August and we are ready to start thinking about back to school. So this is the first of 2 back to school episodes that we're going to be doing. And Candace is bringing us our moment today.
Yes. And these kind of build off of a little bit of those summer conversations that we started having. So end of July, you go to the store, right? And this is what brought this August conversation up. And you start seeing the school supplies. And immediately you're like, oh, summer's over.
Yep.
Okay. Time to start thinking about my syllabus, things I wanted to change from last year, which classrooms I'm going to be using, how I'm going to do things differently, my routine, what my office hours are going to be, all these things that start coming up. And so as soon as those supplies show up, it's almost like the announcement is that summer's over.
Yes.
Yep. And then I feel guilty because I'm not enjoy the moment, enjoy the rest of summer, cram it all in. What else did we not get done? And what else do I have to get done before school starts? So all of this starts building and it starts to be a countdown instead of staying present and in the moment. And then the dreams come. So every year, I'm without fail. Right around this time or as we're getting ready, I have this dream that I show up to school and I'm setting up my classroom. And then all of a sudden everyone starts coming in and they're like, oh, it's the first day.
And you're not ready?
No, nothing's ready. My room is like desk. First of all, I'm a professor, but I still have the desk dream.
Yeah.
Okay. The desks are all on a corner. Now here's the best part. I am in pajamas in this dream. And not only am I in pajamas, but I am in the ugly pajamas that you want no one to see you in. Like, first of all, I would never leave the house even to take the garbage outside in these pajamas.
Yeah, but they're real comfy, so you hang on to them.
They're like always the worst pajamas. And so that's what this dream is every single year without fail. And so, but it's funny because even as a professor, I'm still having it. Like I'm showing up to class and nothing's ready and the syllabus isn't done and they're walking in and I'm like, why are you guys here? And so just starts this and it's every single year. And what's funny is even with all these worries and anxieties and needing to get ready, I love the beginning of a school year.
Right.
I get excited for it.
I know.
So it's like this balance of both.
Mm-hmm.
I like filling out my planner and I like all the new ideas and all the things that come to me. But there is this anxiety and this transition.
Mm-hmm. And is it physical? It sounds like it's kind of physical.
Well, it's obviously physical because it's showing it manifesting in my dreams, but I also feel like a tightening and I carry a lot here in my chest. We've talked about this before. And all of a sudden my shoulders are a little tighter, my chest is a little tighter. I'm like, I got to do this and I got to do this. And it almost goes back to that episode where we all these things I wanted to do over summer, to have a productive summer. And here I am. And so, it's a little bit of an anxiety. I'm like, oh, what do I need to do to make sure I'm ready for when school starts? And, again, even as a professor, those anxieties are still there. So it does. It becomes a physical thing and this anxious feeling.
That's what I was, because for me, it's usually this, like you said, this tightening. It's almost a little nauseous feeling. Yeah. It's like our bodies are registering this before our minds are ready.
Yeah.
We've walked through Target the other day, but yes, it was do we start shopping for supplies already? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because you have younger kids. Mm-hmm. So for me, I have a college kid who's getting ready to go back, but it's still a different kind of setup. And then my son's going to be a senior this year. So it was okay, all you pretty much need is a backpack, and some clothes, it's a different thing. So, it's exciting, but also like emotionally heavy. The start of a school year always seems to be.
It really does. Yeah. And even after doing it for 20 plus years, it's
Yeah.
still, I know on the first day of class, I always ask the students, were you able to sleep last night? Because I wasn't, because I was so excited about coming here. You do. You get so excited.
Oh yeah, you definitely don't sleep well the day
No.
before or that week.
I think that anxiety that you're talking about is because we're thinking about the future, right? We're like thinking about that. And so are we going to dig into that? Yeah.
So really this is building from that is this teacher me starts before summer means ready to go. These dual identities. I do want to mention, I see this even with brand new teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're first time, they haven't even had their own classrooms yet, and they're now carrying these expectations of who they're going to become. And then veteran teachers carry memories, experiences. And so those new teachers are carrying these imagined versions of what teaching is going to be, different stories with same emotional weight. And so why can something as simple as walking down the school supply aisle completely change how we feel? And so I was thinking about this as I was preparing and breaking this down into, different things. And obviously we like to talk about the research too. So our brains respond to cues before events. So really it's actually quite fascinating. Our brains don't simply react to what's happening around us. They're making predictions based on previous experiences. Lisa Barrett describes the brain as a prediction machine. It's always asking what usually happens next. So it's not the crayons. It's what relates to the crayons and what they represent.
Yeah. Yeah. The cue doesn't, the crayons, the cue, the aisle, that doesn't create the emotion, but it brings that expectation up to the surface for you, right? That all comes flooding in when we see that back to school aisle.
Right. Well, and it is this thing where humans really do, and she talks a lot about this, it's really hard to live in the present.
Yeah.
Because we are constantly predicting what happens next, even if we are trying to be in this present moment. And so that cue kicks in and automatically, we've been, especially teachers that are coming back to, or teachers preparing. It goes back even to when we were students, right? So children see school supplies and it's what's next? And so it's the planning, it's pressure, but it's excitement and responsibility and back to deadlines and routines, hope, stress, depending on how your school year ended. And usually, as teachers, we're pretty tired at the end of the school year. But it's okay, fresh start next year. Here's what we're going to do next.
Yeah. And it's the work, right? It's the work that's coming that we're preparing for, right? We're anticipating all of this work, but teaching is also very relational. And so I think there's that layer of, we're anticipating these relationships. We don't even know these kids yet. We're anticipating who they're going to be and the families that come with them and the conversations that, we can't really predict. And so I think preparing for people is kind of this different than preparing just that to-do list. And it's both of those things for our profession.
Oh, absolutely. We're thinking about, you bring that up, relationships. We're thinking about how we're going to run our classroom, what we learned from last year. How can I better engage with our families? Where did I slip up and how can I do better? And how do I let go of some of the situations that I had? And so that one notebook and that one, pack of crayons or markers we saw opens up this whole emotional library. It all starts coming in. Psychologists call this anticipatory stress. So our brains, again, similar to what we just discussed, preparing for anticipated demands long before those demands actually arrive.
Yeah. I completely feel every inch of that. Yes.
So our brain is okay, school year, here we go. Yeah. And it's okay, this, and I'm talking in generalizations, but this administrator really had these high expectations and this is what they asked for. And so when I come in this year, I have to do this, this, and this. And so it's already the stress of doing this, and this, whatever it may be. And so again, it's this association, it's this cue, it's these predictions based on experiences. And then transitions themselves carry a high cognitive load.
They do.
So just any type of life transition there is a cognitive load. It's this preparation. Like I said earlier, I genuinely look forward to the school year. I really do. I love fresh starts. I get really excited, new ideas. So sometimes I'm I'm tired and we haven't even started yet.
That's not good.
No. And it's like, why am I tired? Like, we haven't started. I'm excited. I'm happy, nervous, especially if there's change in education. There's constant evolving and changing administration, roles, expectations, all that. And so William Bridges mentions an important distinction. So change happens on a calendar, but transition happens inside of us. So the first teacher workday is change, but transitions begin way before that.
Right.
All this planning and preparation. So the store where I see these school supplies is where everything actually begins.
Yeah. So I was reading about Bridges too.
Oh, okay.
Our research took us in the same direction and his model for transitions. And he talks about every transition is composed of an ending, a neutral zone, and then a new beginning. And so that ending makes us fearful because those endings, they break our connection with the setting that we've come to know ourselves. And whatever's happening is ending. And so we come to identify ourselves with the circumstances of our lives, right? So whatever's happening in our lives, we identify with that. And so every transition starts with an ending. And I think that's kind of where where those school supplies are. This means the ending. And then he talks about this neutral zone, which I wasn't familiar with, but when I think about transitions in my life, it resonated with me because he talks about this neutral zone is this like, I don't want to say purgatory, but there's almost like ambiguous space between summer fun. Oh my gosh, the middle of summer, we're going to the beach and all this stuff, and back to school. And so this neutral zone. So for many, the experience of the neutral zone is essentially one of emptiness. Our old reality looks transparent and nothing feels solid anymore. So it's like this unsteady, right? But he talks about finding meaning in this neutral zone. So this is a time for us to reflect, to make space for ourselves. And it really spoke to me. I was like, I want to do this. He talks about that there are some, I guess, strategies almost to kind of shorten your time spent in the neutral zone, but also to make it meaningful. And a couple of those I thought were kind of relevant to our conversation is one, accept your need for time in the neutral zone. Like you got to be there for a minute before you transition, right? Before that new beginning, we have to just make time in this neutral zone, find a regular time and place to be alone. And then he talks about keeping a log of your neutral zone experiences. Ooh. And it can be a day, a week, whatever, but to write things down, it doesn't necessarily have to be like like logging everything that you do, but you want to capture like what's going on in your life. So some of the prompts that he has are like, what was really going on, or even what was trying to happen? What was your mood? What were you thinking about, perhaps without realizing it at the time? What puzzling or unusual things happened? What decisions do you wish you could have made? What dreams do you remember having? So he's really like...
Dreams would be a good thing for me.
Yeah. So it's like just this, taking this space, because this is going to happen according to, this model of transition that he has is we have this ending, we have this neutral zone. So make space for the neutral zone. Like you're in between, the end and the new beginning. So take that time and make that space. And then the new beginning, once you've kind of sat with everything that's going on in your transition, is to stop getting ready and take action. So to start your new beginning, you can't keep thinking about it. Can't keep thinking about like, what am I going to do with my classroom? And how is this conversation going to go? And what's this new curriculum going to be like? And all of these things. It's like, nope, then you're in it and just take action, because then you'll feel better about the new beginning itself.
Well, which is what exactly makes that neutral zone or that transitional time so difficult. It's the unknown. And whether we like it or not, as teachers, we have a little bit of a control freak in us. Okay. I mean, that's why we get into leadership, or that's why we like to run a classroom. There's a little bit of that personality in us. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's what keeps us organized. But transitions are uncomfortable because there isn't control, because there is so much uncertainty and we're not sure where these things are. We could say this new curriculum, but we don't really know. And even if we were introduced, we don't know how it's going to flow. Right. Or this new administrator, we don't know. We could have positive expectations and it could be complete, but there's so much unknown. And I think that's why I love this acceptance in the neutral zone, but also taking some time to acknowledge and be in it and see what comes up while you're in it, because it is a difficult time.
Yeah.
The unknown is tricky.
So Bridges, through this transition model, he validates this, that we've got to move through the end and the neutral zone before we can get to that new beginning. And if we don't acknowledge this transition period, these transition periods, it makes it harder for us in that new beginning.
Right, absolutely. And so it's not just the changing schedule, it's shifting routines, relationships, responsibilities, identity, expectations, all of that. And even positive transitions require emotional energy. So this, like, maybe I'm feeling tired mentally, making this transition mentally, but that it's that neutral zone can be kind of tiring because all these things are getting you there. And I liked that he did say, like, then you're already there, like, let's go. So our minds have already begun returning. And coming back to, like, we never walk into a new school year empty-handed. So yes, it's a fresh start, it's a new year, but you're not ever coming in without some type of life experience that is guiding your beliefs about coming into this next state.
Right.
We carry stories with us. So if you look into, like, research on narrative identity, we understand ourselves through the stories we tell about our experiences. Right? We're all our own main character in a story. So these are the stories we tell ourselves. This is what we carry. You can't, we talk about the students bringing in their backpacks, right? Like their emotional backpacks. But, like, for us, it's the same. We have these backpacks that we're bringing in and these experiences that we're bringing in. And so we carry that with us. So when I think about August, I'm not just walking in, getting ready. I'm thinking about the students, the lessons, things that need to be completely changed, the changes, like you said, conversations with families, moments I wish I handled differently. And I really like to reflect and make changes. And I have, like, notes from the entire school year that I take with me to then say, this is what I need to do differently. This is what I need to change. So, I'm constantly reflecting and looking back on that. Also, there's the good moments, like why I became a teacher. You get that email from a student who you had 20 years ago, or you have this student come to you and say something, it's like, or you watch a student grow. Like I think I've shared with you a student that I had in multiple classes, a pre-service teacher, just watching her over these few semesters. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's grown so much. So our brains just start weaving these experiences and predictions. And so, like, mentally, it's like, okay, based on everything that I've experienced in my 20-something years of education, not to mention the stuff that we carry from, like, childhood schooling, this is what I think it'll be like.
Yeah. I think this idea of narrative identity, this McAdams research about narrative identity, when I was reading about the human time as narrative time, and this goes back to, like, Homo sapiens and how language developed and how how our stories helped our brains develop, but also created this time, and that humans understand time as this unfolding of a story. Like you said, right? We place all of these expectations and experiences within our story, and we don't experience events as, like, these disconnected moments. They're part of this ongoing narrative that gives them meaning. And so as our life unfolds, we're continuously revising that narrative, interpreting our new experiences in light of what has come before, right? Those years before, all the, like you just mentioned, and what we imagine comes next. So your target cue, going to the store, right? That cue, it mattered a lot because it instantly placed you back into that unfolding of a story of the new school year, right? Because two people can walk through the store and see that back to school section. And one of them just sees, like, oh, school supplies, right? And the teacher sees, or the student sees, everything that goes along with that story about the beginning of the school year. We don't experience August or the crayons as an isolated event. We immediately locate it within this story of our lives that we're putting together and constantly doing, so that we feel connected. Like, in the present, we have to be able to connect the past and think about the future to be able to have some, like, cognitive control over our present moment.
Right.
I think it's just such fascinating.
It is.
Like, thinking about how we understand.
Well, it's amazing how the brain works and how, as you mentioned, seeing those supplies is different. And so again, as we said, the cues, It's not the school supplies, it's the stories we've told ourselves about those school supplies. And so the other thing I was thinking about is like teacher me wakes up. So there's this conversation about like teacher mode, right? I'm on teacher mode. Sometimes my kids, when I come home, be like principal mode. Can you turn off for principal Candace? Even my mom sometimes will joke. She'll be like, okay, is this Dr. Smith? Principal Smith? And I have a really good friend who always says at the end of a school year, summer wife is here. And I love that for her. And then it's like, oh, summer wife's getting ready to leave. And so I was really thinking about how we carry this like summer as this one time we needed to survive and rest and regather. But like, why do we believe that summer is the only time we can be this version of ourselves? Right.
Mhm.
And I mean, maybe some of us like it that way, but in a way, like what parts of summer can we carry with us? I was thinking about identity researchers talk about something called possible selves. And so we're constantly imagining who we're becoming. And this is what we keep saying. Will these classes be different? Can I do this again? Am I already behind? Do I still have what it takes? What can I do differently? And they're not planning questions. These are really identity questions.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the possible selves literature, because when we think about this, like so possible selves are this run the gamut of who we want to become, who we're afraid of becoming, but they provide this conceptual link between our cognition and our motivation. So what that means is like all these possible selves function as incentives for future behavior. They're who we want to become or who we want to avoid becoming, right? So who's that teacher we could be, right? We naturally, imagine these future versions of ourselves before we ever step into the classroom, and it shapes how we think in the present. I think that's helpful for thinking about your teacher me before you're ever in school, right? Because this is one of the possible selves that
Right.
you're envisioning becoming.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I think as teachers, especially, or educators, administration, whatever role you are, it's impossible to not have this constant possible self of who you'd like to become because we are reflective, right? We're constantly thinking about ourselves and how we want to be different. And outside of like evaluations themselves, maybe we do have a great evaluator who gave us some really great feedback to take into this next transition. But I think we are reflective in our role and in terms of constantly creating this motivation for what's next, who we want to be next. And thinking to ourselves, sometimes mid-year when we're really tired, it starts to fall apart and we're like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
That story again that we're carrying is, okay, what do we want to do differently? And this is where I was thinking about this, like, why is summer the only time that I can cram all these things in? There's times during a school year. And so how do I bring that with me? And I think sometimes too, the end of summer, there's this sadness. And I think that's normal. It's like transitional grief, saying goodbye to this, do whatever we want, sit outside, more time with the kids, slow mornings. You and I both love our slow mornings.
Yeah.
More summer reading, family time, really owning our own schedule. And so even when we're excited, like I'm, usually by the end of summer, I'm ready. Like, let's get in a routine. I need to get established. I'm, feeling kind of all over the place. It's still, we're letting go of something. There's some sort of transition.
I love that you said transition grief.
Yes.
Yeah, because there is this like letting go, right? So if teacher you is becoming more active again, right, then that also means that summer you is becoming less central.
Yes.
So I think that's why that transition feels bittersweet, because it's like, it's great. We want to go back to school. We're so excited to meet our new students and everything it's going to hold. But we have to let go.
Yeah, there's a part of letting go. And so, it's teacher me isn't replacing summer me. I'm still there, but how can we make them exist together? And how, in a realistic way that and I think a lot of this does go back to like that episode about boundaries and authentic self-care, but instead of getting rid of this like transitional grief and just trying, okay, get over it, just jump in, right? And it comes back to this neutral zone. It's this fight between, don't think about the school year yet.
Yeah.
But like, what if I'm excited to think about the school year?
That's not how humans work, right? It's not how you can't just like shut off that part. It's like, oh, forget it.
It's like, stop. You still have time.
Mhm.
It's still summer. Stop. And there is a message I do need to tell myself that it is still summer. It's okay. If you want to do some things, go ahead. If you don't today, you don't. Not that I'm doing something wrong, but I need to, this preparing and sitting in this, instead of how do I stop feeling this feeling? What is this feeling trying to tell me?
So it reminds me of Susan Davis's work on emotional agility that we were both reading. And she writes that difficult emotions aren't inherently good or bad. They're data. They tell us something about what matters to us. And the goal isn't to get rid of the feeling as quickly as possible. Like you said, like, oh, shut it off. It's about getting curious about what it's pointing us toward. So it really reminds me of being in the present moment. So maybe like power of now, even The Secret, those types of things is like the power is in your presence. And so when you can sit with those emotions and feel them and get curious about them, then you'll probably learn more about yourself and where you want to go and how you want to proceed. But it comes from being in this moment and not worry about the past or anxiety about the future. It's just being here.
Yeah. Emotions aren't a problem to solve.
Yeah.
Right? With their information to understand. And my brain isn't always accurate in its predictions. It's trying to prepare me. But maybe I just need to sit and be curious and not believing every thought, but instead just being curious, exploring it. So even when you go back to that like neutral zone conversation, journaling and writing things down, I've been doing that a lot because we have a lot of changes happening. And so maybe I do need to be doing more writing and thinking about those things. I also was thinking there's a part of us that is just always going, staying present is very difficult.
It is.
Right?
It is.
And so we call it sticky noting, and we like sticky note for notes for each other when we're going to be working together. But then even for myself, I'm like, just write it down. If you're somebody who, hey, I have this really great idea, I kind of want to think it out, then just do it instead of leaving it sitting there festering.
Yeah.
Okay, there is some research out there that does talk about the longer you wait between an idea and implementing it, it sometimes just doesn't happen. And that's a generalization of that statement. But
that's one of my mantras for like working out is don't think about it, just do it. Because when I think about how heavy that weight is that I'm going to lift up, I'm like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. But don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that sometimes is the thing, like just do it and then it's done.
Yeah.
But if there is that thing, even if it's early, just do it. If it's nagging at you and you're like getting stressed about it, it's easier to just do it.
Yeah. The anxiety or the anticipation, the thinking about it, taking action gets rid of all of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe you got your first staff email. We got one this week about a meeting, or your district calendar, or the notice that, hey, if you want to come in and set up your classrooms, here's the dates. So what comes up? Is it excitement, pressure, hope, fear, relief? Maybe all of them. Maybe you had a really rough summer and you're like, I'm ready to go back. Let's do this. None of them are actually going to predict what the school year will become. And we have these assumptions and these beliefs, but it tells us what we're carrying into it. So is there something we actually need to let go from the previous year? Or is there something we really want to work through? So what are you carrying? And just kind of what we've been a little all over about today is what's happening inside of us. And there is a piece of this, why do so many teachers start preparing before they're officially back at work? And why has this become so normal? We don't even question it. Yeah. So that's a little bit more about culture than psychology. So that's going to be the next episode. But thinking from today, so the school's supplies weren't asking whether you're ready, right? Business is business. Time to make money. School supplies are out, right? They're reminding you of another chapter beginning. And every new chapter asks something of us, not perfection, not certainty, not having everything figured out, just the willingness to begin again. Because we're not afraid of school supplies. Maybe we're recognizing ourselves in them. And that's one of the best parts of being a teacher is that we do get a fresh start. We do get this new beginning. And maybe teacher me doesn't have to replace summer me. Maybe the goal isn't to leave one version of ourselves behind. Maybe it's bringing the best of both into a new season. And that's the second look.
Okay, so what do you hope our listeners notice differently tomorrow because of this conversation we had today?
just that you're feeling your feelings and that you're in this transitional zone and that it's okay. And so maybe take the time to pause. Maybe you're not a journaler, but you have a really good friend that you can talk through who is in a similar profession or really understands that, or just maybe just sit with it. Notice what's going on. What is bringing up this feeling? And is there anything you can do about it? And if there's something you want to do it. As I was listening today, I was thinking myself, I want to write down what I love about summer me that I actually can take into the school year.
Summer me doesn't really go away.
No,
she's always there.
She's there. Maybe she's resting or a little quieter.
Yeah.
But what parts of that do I want to take with me? And what parts of teacher me do I really like? Because it doesn't have to be bad.
No.
It's like we said, it's just this transition. So kind of all of that, just taking all of that with.
Maybe also knowing that this is all completely normal. Like this is your brain, and the way that your, humans work is that the cue comes instantly, but it's going to take us a little longer to be able to really transition.
Yeah. There's so much research around why this is happening.
Yeah. Right.
The final question to leave everyone with is, what part of yourself is already showing up for the school year? And what part do you hope comes with you into the school year?
Oh, wonderful. Well, we'd love to hear your answers to those. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Second Look Education. Please subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast and look out for an upcoming newsletter from us soon. So, as always, thank you for taking a second look.
See you next time.